Everybody. I'm Karen Sires. I'm an enterprise transformation consultant, SPC. I say AI change strategist because every company that I walk into today, they're trying to incorporate AI. I am super excited to be here with Doug Less. He's absolutely amazing. We'll do a little bit more of introductions here at the end, but as you all know, we love for this to be more about you all and your questions, right? Today's a lean coffee, so we're going to keep this as short and sweet as possible and make room for tons of your questions. Just really quick, Doug and I both contributed to the AI native courseware. Doug has done an especially powerful job in creating something that is proprietary to Icon as well. We'll go over that here in a little while. So he always has a very clear, practical way to understand AI and take very complex things and make it super simple. So super excited to be here with him today. So we're going to go over the two courses that are offered right now. So foundations, right? What exactly is foundations? Many of us are being told, hey, you need to use AI. But most teams are just drowning, right, in the hype, the tools, knowing where to start, being afraid, maybe, all of those things. And so, what does AI native foundations give to us? They give to us a shared language. I think that that's really important. What I see is there's varying different levels of AI knowledge within a company. And if we're not all talking the same language, that's kind of hard, right? The 7 AI native success factors, you'll learn those in AI native foundations as well. And a way to redesign one of your personal workflows. So I say that foundations is pretty much, it can be for an individual or it can be for a company. So we offer both public and private classes. I would say both are very beneficial. What do you walk away with? So you walk away with that shared vocabulary that we talked about between business and technology, a responsible adoption playbook, right? To address some of the risk and compliance that are associated with that, and a 3-phase roadmap. From personal upskilling to overall organizational change. And I think that that's pretty powerful. Let's see where we're going next. I'll just talk a little bit about who the courses are for really quick. So I think that foundations, and Doug, you can chime in here if you want to, but
Sure.
I feel like foundations is for everyone, right? There's not anyone who is exempt from needing to learn the foundations. Do you want to
I
add?
100% agree, right? It's for everybody because, like you mentioned, it's you bring a personal workflow to this. You create an agent for yourself. You create all these things, and it's really it, anybody can benefit from it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? I've had everyone from even the director of AI in an organization, C-suiters, all the way down to developers and testers, even people on the business side, right? HR people, legal people being part of this. It's
Yeah.
anybody can benefit from it. If you truly want
Wonderful.
to understand how AI can fit into my everyday and be my partner in making me a better person.
Yeah. So I put up the syllabus here really quick. You can see it's a pretty aggressive syllabus, but I want to point out something on day one. On day one, you actually write your own agent, which is really powerful. I think that that's probably one of the most inspiring times for me when I see students who say, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just did that. So day one, right? So this is not, not a slow class, but really not really complex to understand. And so by the end of day one, you're going to write your own agent, and it's very, very cool. I would encourage you to do this for your personal life or for your professional life. Very important. So change agent, right? So who is change agent for? So change agent is really for people who are kind of moving the organization forward, for people who are leading those efforts. And so you do have to take foundations before you take change agent. So just something to know. What do you learn, right? You learn how to align business and technical stakeholders together. How to avoid kind of the hype traps that go on, right? How to make sure that what you're working on doesn't end up in what we call the POC graveyard. You're going to build implementation roadmaps. How can you be successful and make sure that you don't end up there? Create repeatable success patterns for your AI initiatives. So this is pretty important for those people who might be leading those. and moving forward. Change agent to me is very interesting as well. I kind of just skipped over some of this because I want you all to have time to ask some questions. But who is that for? We talked about the prerequisite. Um, the course outline is very interesting. So you wrote an agent in foundations. You'll be writing a multi-agent in the change agent course, and pretty exciting, right? So it gets into a lot more detail and how to be able to support those deployments. I did want to talk, and I know I'm talking really fast, but I'm doing this for your sake so you can get into those questions. But there is a leadership offering that's coming. So I don't have a ton of details on it. We've been briefed on it, but there's going to be a leadership series of webinars as well as a leadership one-day workshop. And it's one day, it's clear, it's concise. Those leaders can walk out with a ton of information on how they're strategizing throughout the company. So more to come on that, and we'll definitely keep you up to date. Here is the big thing I think that we're talking about today too. Doug is again, like I said, he's absolutely amazing. He has this ability to take very complex things and kind of simmer them down, right, to where they're very digestible. So I want to give him maybe an opportunity to review this slide and this new offering from Icon.
Sure. Thanks, Karen. Not going to go too much into it. We're actually going to send you a link to this, and you can actually download this entire guide for yourself. It's a completely free guide. We're here. You're here. You get something free. So the whole idea behind this was answering this question. If you are a safe enterprise, how can I integrate AI into my safe enterprise? That was really the practical question. And so I started with that question and I just explored it. How can I actually do this? And I essentially created like four different zones, four different pilot areas that you can go to explore AI. So you choose your safe plus AI integration zone through this guide, and it gives you some wins, some early wins that you can do, some actual ideas that you can actually apply in that. So, it's really this last key insight. Start where you have the most pain, the least resistance, and you can show value first with integrating AI with your safe. So, very practical, pragmatic, like Karen said, and that's the whole idea. So we're going to give you that, and I think that's probably enough on it. So,
Perfect. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. Just really quick, so I would just want to talk about that we, again, reiterate, we do offer public and private courses. We'll debate all the time which one's better. I would tell you that foundations, you could do private or public. There's different benefits to each one. If you want to know more, reach out to us, no problem. If you have a training budget, I highly encourage you to say, hey, I would really love to take foundations and just kind of start on your journey. What was it? We do have a couple of courses coming up that we're offering. St. Louis, I think, is planned for late March, and then we have Atlanta that is planned for April. We're finalizing those things, and you'll be able to see that out on our website soon. But if you have a desire to have a course in your area and you feel like that you have enough people there, then please reach out to Beth at Icon, Dalen, Stella. You all probably know the whole gamut of them. You can reach out to myself or Doug, and we can kind of pass you along as well. So now with my very quick review of what Foundations and Change Agent is, I want to hand it over to Doug to get us started with the lean coffee and us get right to the important stuff, your questions.
all right. I just replaced the share. Again, if you've been following along in the chat, we need you to come to this lean coffee table board. It's pretty simple to use here. So we're going to take about the next 4 minutes or so for you to review what's there and add your questions. So we want to make sure that we have 45 minutes of this call to actually answer as many of these questions as we can. So all you have to do is, if you look at this and you don't see the topic that is, hot on your mind, I really want to know this. Doesn't have to be necessarily about AI native, but at least about AI, something that you're facing. What's keeping you up at night about AI, or man, I'm super curious about this. Like if you look at my screen here, stay curious. So what are you curious about AI? Enter that in the topic, just type it up here, whatever my topic is in this, and hit add. And if you have nothing to add, go ahead and vote. So this is going to be driven by your votes. So those topics on here that have the most votes, we're going to go in priority order based on the number of votes. So everybody has 3 votes that is attended here. All you have to do to vote is click on the word vote. You can put all your votes on one, spread them out. It doesn't matter. This is all about you and for you. So I'm going to be quiet for the next 3 to 4 minutes and allow you to digest and vote. I should have some music. This is anyone on the call can add things. So I do notice we've got 16 participants, but only 8 people have connected to this board. So again, this is a live participation meeting. So if you've got an item that you want discussed, it needs to be on this board. Otherwise, it is mysteriously in your head and we won't know about it. It might be a lot of things, but a mind reader is not one of them. Again, in the last couple minutes here, make sure you come on and at least vote. Make sure you vote because I don't see a lot of votes on this board. So make sure you vote. I still see a lot of people with open votes. I'm going to give it one more minute. I still see some people with votes out there, so give you one last minute, and then we're going to dive in. 10 seconds. All right. I'm going to go ahead and start the discussion here, and this board is going to get resorted based on the number of votes. And we're going to start with 5 minutes talking about each particular topic. Karen and I will both collaborate on this and address each question. And then you'll get an opportunity as a group to vote whether we continue conversating on that particular item or whether we move on. So again, this is all about you. All right. I love this one. 5 minutes. How does the AI native training compare to other AI training we could invest in, like courses from Google, OpenAI, MIT, etc.? Karen, you want to start it or?
Sure, sure. So it was interesting to me. So we were part of the initial course with AI native, and I kind of felt the same way. I was like, gosh, I've taken all of these other courses, and how are they going to make it different? And it was drastically different. We focused a lot on the people side, where most of those others they just talk about what the technology is, but as well as when I walked away from there, I became part of a community, right? And so they have something called AI Native Connect, and so I look at that information daily. I share between peers. I've continuously learned where when I reflect back at some of those other courses I took it, I got a certificate, and I kind of walked on. When I look back at those courses, a lot of times I'm like, that was great information for then, but I didn't really get to stay up to date. So I would tell you, how does it compare? It's much different, and it'll give you the tools not only to technically navigate through AI, but also to, I would say, to personally navigate through AI from a overall perspective, as well as to keep you learning and growing as AI does, which we all know that from day to day it changes.
Yeah, and I agree. So to me, like, I take a step back and I even look at the words AI native and what does that mean? Right? I've been doing AI for a couple of years now, right? But what does it truly mean to be AI native? To where AI, 'cause that's a big thing to me, is like what I got out of the class is how can AI be as ubiquitous as you opening up Outlook every day? How can it be as ubiquitous as you pulling up your phone and opening whatever social media app that you happen to crave? Right? How can it be just as pervasive as that, right? Truly becoming AI native. One of the students in one of my classes said, when asked what it means to him, he's like, just like I'm a Chicago native, not me, but the student, I understand the streets, the boroughs. I know where the cool stuff is. I know how to navigate everything, right? It's just part of my psyche. It's part of my upbringing. That's AI native, right? How can AI become your partner in all that you do, right? It is your working partner, right? It's not something to fear. It's not to be afraid of. It's not going to replace me because I'm the one that's doing the critical thinking. I'm guiding it and directing it, and it's helping me. So how can I use it as my helper? And that's the big thing. I mean, I've been through MIT's, all the prompting stuff, understanding what an LLM is, how it works, what tokens are, all the technical stuff. But that never really helped me to say, how can this become part of it's a critical tool, right? It's a tool that is in my hand, just like my phone seems to go everywhere with me, AI goes everywhere with me.
Yes.
So it's like, how do I, and that's the mindset change that comes out of this is how do I start with AI? How do I start with that? How can AI help me with this? How can AI help me plan my trip? How can AI help me address this concern teams are having with a retrospective item? How can this help me improve the quality of my features? How can this help me run PI planning better? How can this help me, do my lean portfolio management better? So it's all thinking about how to start with AI, and that's a big thing to me. Is
It's
is
pretty.
making it just ubiquitous.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice when we have students who come back and say, this is what changed, is I now use it first versus thinking of it as a tool, a tool to go to. It's now my partner. So it's a great point.
I'm just writing this in here.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
I do think that the ongoing learning too is something that I've found extremely valuable.
Yeah,
Um,
the community is amazing. I agree, Karen. The community is amazing. I mean, we've got doctors of AI in there, people who have their doctorates in AI, people that are AI thought leaders in there, people that are doing things with nanobots, right, that are part of this community. I mean, you want to see how you can stretch AI. I mean, they're there, right? You've got people that are doing robotics with AI. So it's you get to ask questions, and it's a very active community that you become part of. And they're all about how do I actually, I mean, that's a big thing from all of this is their goal is how do we get ROI from AI? So that's a big part of this. So now's the time for you to vote. Do you want to extend this topic and understand the differences between these in this topic? Do you not have a preference? now's the time for you. It looks like we're trending towards in topic, no extend. So I'm just going to go ahead and say finish. Massive trending there. How does AI intersect with SAFe? This is very interesting in our company. Well, like I said, after this, you're going to get a link to a free download for a SAFe AI integration guide. And it has like 4 different zones. Again, very pragmatic, but you can actually go. Scaled Agile has several articles on how they're integrating AI into SAFe. It is becoming a first and foremost part of SAFe. So I can tell you that all of the training, whether from leading safe to safer POPM, safer Scrum Masters, it is all being actively written. This year, you're going to see all of the classes being updated to include AI exercises and activities as part of the curriculum. It's really going to become part of it. They're really embracing it. I look at, how does it interact with SAFe? I mean, again, it happens at every level. There are ways to use SAFe at the portfolio level, at the art level, at the team level, across all the roles, right? It is baked in. And so there's even, if you have an active membership with SAFe, you can go out there and you can go out to the videos and the tools that are available. And there's actually micro learnings available out there already for how, given your role or particular ceremonies, how you can integrate AI into those. So a lot of intersection is happening. I think one thing that needs to be understood though too is the whole AI native, it is a completely new business for Scaled Agile. So it isn't under the umbrella of SAFe, it is under the umbrella of SAI, the parent company. So the parent company, it's a whole different organization. So if you were to look at the org structure, they are a wholly owned subsidiary, if you will. And their focus is on AI, and they are moving way faster than SAFe has ever moved with updating things. I can tell you the AI native courseware has changed just since Karen and I went through it 3 months ago. It changes every couple of weeks. They're constantly updating this to reflect new changes, new models, because as things change, as models evolve, as tools evolve, they're bringing the latest and greatest to this, the AI native side. So moving incredibly fast. There is an integration. We could probably spend the rest of this call talking about that, but I really encourage you to download that guide because it does give you 4 particular areas that you could think about based on, and really it ties back to your SAFe maturity. Because just like Dean Leffingwell a long time ago said, you can't scale crappy code. If your SAFe implementation is broken in some ways. Right? So wherever you are successful with SAFe, AI can amplify that. Wherever you are struggling with SAFe, it's also going to amplify that. So it's the whole garbage in, garbage out principle, right? It's going to make your dysfunction appear even faster or even greater because SAFe can move so fast. So, and that's not to scare you away from AI. Please use it. But based on your SAFe maturity, plus any resistance that your organization might have, like are you limited to Copilot? What is their limitations that you might have around SAFe? And it gives you a guide into how you can then apply that across 4 different areas, whether that's in roles or in events, different events or other areas, at the portfolio and strategic level if you're ready for that, along with some pilot opportunities. Here's some pilots that will guarantee you get some ROI out of your AI use. So,
Hopefully, you can tell how excited Doug is
yeah.
about that, and it is exciting, right? As we start to see it impact companies. I do want to underscore something he did say earlier, though. You do not have to be a safe shop, right, to
Mm.
adopt AI native. It is actually created for any company to come in. One of the big epiphanies that I had was one day they showed us a picture, and the picture of safe was a circle. And then the picture of AI was this huge circle that was around that, and it actually superseded it. So it really kind of hit home that this isn't just for companies that have adopted SAFe. This is for every company because all companies are going to need to adopt AI, right? So yes, there's some specialties that are needed there, and a lot of knowledge. As you can see, Doug is super knowledgeable too about integrating that within Safe. I would go out and I would look at at the information that's out there. It's super, super helpful. If you're in a certain role, you're going to walk out with something that's usable. But just wanted to underscore that.
Yeah, AI native is agnostic to any of that, right? It is.
But if you are not agile in some way, shape, or form, I think that you're going to struggle with AI
Mm, mm.
just by watching other companies try to adopt. But I know we're at voting time.
So we're happy to continue this. We'll move on to the next topic. Um, It's like we're again trending towards end. I just want to make sure that voices are heard. It's a safe space. All right. This one may not need 5 minutes. I'm going to shorten this one. How technical do I need to be successful with AI and AI native training? Not at all. You really don't need to be technical at all. I mean, again, we've had business people. Every exercise is carefully guided and carefully walked through. If you can copy and paste, um, that's about the extent of it. If you can go to a website and you can copy and paste things and you can follow along with instructions, you will be 100% fine. And you will see your eyes will be opened and you'll have lots of aha and wow moments. But you really don't need to be technical at all. I mean, if you can spell AI, you're technical enough. Karen, you want to add anything?
I don't know if there's much to add to that. You
Yeah.
absolutely do not need to be technical. So I know that I have a lot of people who say that it's, that they were super scared before they walked in, but they felt very empowered after day two of foundations, right? And so, yeah, constantly get that feedback. So please do not be afraid at all. They've made it very simple. And I know that I probably scared everybody when I said at the end of day one, you're going to create your own agent, but it's super simple, and yeah, you'll be led step by step through it. And so, yes, you need a computer. That's about as technical as you need to be. Yeah. I don't think we can add any
Yeah.
more to that,
Yeah.
Doug. Do you?
Nope. Have a computer, you're good. Yeah, I like that. I'm probably gonna borrow that one. Have a computer, you're good. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this and just drag this over to ended. Ooh. What is the biggest challenge organizations face when starting their AI native journey? You want to kick that one off, Karen? Karen is like she loves strategy and working with companies at the strategy level that are starting their journey. So
Yeah. Um,
they say she's the C-suite whisperer.
Thanks for that. So, if you were to ask me what's the biggest, which gives me one answer, right? I love these questions on a panel because somebody will give you five. But if you were to ask me what is the one biggest challenge that organizations face, I would tell you they're also afraid, right? So then they start to lock everything down. So from a security perspective, how do we keep things secure? Oh no, we cannot use AI. And then they start to lock everything down, which starts to handcuff not just the people who are doing projects, but then to the people that this can help day to day in their day to day work, right? So I would say that the biggest challenge that organizations face is knowing how to set up a secure environment so that their company can take advantage of AI and to be able to move quick enough to stay up to date with us. One of the things I've been deep diving into is security, right? Security within companies and how do we use AI to actually help us combat that, right? So when you think about cybersecurity, who can think almost like a human, right? They say almost because of the emotional part that's still not there, but it's AI. And so, can you imagine that you could come up with 1,000 different ways that somebody could break into your company and you could develop an actual defense against that. And so when I say that, I worked with a company that was in Australia, and one of their interview things was you had to sit in a room and you had to draw out how you would break into a bank. And that was how you got onto their security team if you were really good, right? So think about now that you have 1,000 different partners, right? Helping you think about how would I break into a bank and catching all those different ways. So I just want to say the biggest challenge I think that organizations face is they don't know where to start. They don't know how to set up the guardrails within their company that keep them secure. That's my number one. Doug, you want to take a
Yeah.
shot at one and then I can add some more.
I'm just going to add that. And I would totally agree with that. Another thing for me is they, the other biggest thing is they say, hey, we're going to do AI. And they go out and they buy 4,000 licenses of whatever, Gemini if you're a Google shop, Copilot if you're Microsoft. But then they don't give people any kind of guidance or change management or effort or instruction as to how they can use it. So you what you end up with is 1-2%. You look at it like Copilot. Just what is it? A couple weeks ago, Karen shared an article that she discovered like only 1 or 2% of their Copilot licenses were even being used. The company had bought 4,000 of them, but they didn't give the people any kind of ability to, how do you use it? And so I'm working with companies now, and they've got like a every day, hey, here's a prompt you can try, right? So they're encouraging people to use it. It's that encouraging them to use it by giving them examples and ideas, and so every day there's a, hey, try this prompt and see what happens. So they're putting that things out there. Then every week they produce a, hey, here's it, or they create a prompt library for people to use. And they're sharing stories of how people have actually used AI successfully as a partner in their role. But they're constantly putting that out there. So it's becoming this thing where people feel safe using it. It breaks their fears down, knowing that their colleagues are using it, how they're using it, how they're benefiting from it. I mean, that's a big thing to me too, is that's kind of the change management side of it, is how you're growing your people and getting them to embrace it. And so if you've got that security, you've identified that, you're practicing responsible AI, you've got the guardrails set up. I think the next thing then is, the struggle people have is getting people to actually use it. And that's just a small portion of it, right? That's just using generative AI. But I mean, again, there's machine learning, there's agentic workflows. These are all things you can grow into. But again, it's getting people off the ledge, right? Getting them off the seat and starting walking toward it. That's another big aspect of it is the
Right. So,
change management.
Doug, I love that you did that. So, to juxtapose that, right? So, the first thing is always the security and the lockdown. The other one is we're going to replace everybody with AI, right? And so we saw that. I sent something to Doug and I said, hey, if they would have talked to us, they wouldn't have done this. Um, sorry, it's time.
No, no, yeah. Just give me one more minute. I was just going to add a minute here. Change management.
All right. We talked about that, and I think that this is one of the things that, the AI native training kind of embeds in us is don't go out and think that it can replace somebody. There has to be a human in the loop, right? We talk a lot about the human in the loop portion of it. And I think that some of the companies that we see kind of retracting, right? They went out, they replaced everybody. Customer service is one of their biggest
Mm.
areas that they'll do it. We replaced 4,000 people and now we're trying to hire them back. I believe that that's probably another challenge, right? So to go to the other side. So either we're too afraid to use it or we're using it and we're thinking that it's replacing people before we actually have time to understand the true value that it gives. And we're not putting those humans in the loop. We're totally trusting what AI does. So those are the two different areas that I was seeing.
Awesome. So now it's going to go back to the vote. Do we want to continue this topic in this topic? Ooh, we've got some extends. Um, I don't know. Are people allowed to enter some things in chat? It says extend the topic. I don't know if you can enter things in chat if there's something specific that we haven't covered, because people want to extend this topic. So I don't know if people are allowed to
Yeah, they should be able to.
join the chat. So if there's something specific, because it looks like a majority of people want to extend this, so I'll put 3 minutes. If there's something in the chat, like you want us to continue on, I mean, we've shared 3 or 4 items here
Yeah, I can.
around biggest challenges.
All right.
One is the
If
fear, the security,
yeah,
setting up like your garden. It's the
can I
change
talk?
management. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Sorry.
I'll talk about another challenge I see here. I walk into companies and I'm talking to executives, and sometimes those executives don't even know that they have something with AI going on within their company. And why is that? Because somebody made the decision that AI became a team of people who were going to kind of control AI, and they were going to do all of the efforts and initiatives that were related to AI, right? I would say that some of that genesis is from that security and that risk averse, kind of step, possibly, but they made AI a team. And so that's a big challenge because is AI one team? No. Number one, they're not going to be able to keep up. Are they the people with the best ideas? I would tell you that the people working in your organization are the people with the best ideas. One of the things that AI Native Foundations gives to you is a tool to be able to express why you think it's a good idea for us to look at this for AI automation, right? And then we're just looking at automating something that's super simple. I mean, AI has a reach way beyond that. But making one single team responsible for that and implementing that is a very big challenge.
I totally agree. Yeah. It's that AI team over there. They're the people doing AI, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, that it's you got to break that bubble, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be, how do I work AI into every feature, into every story? I mean, how do I, at an agile level, or how do I use it in writing a marketing campaign? How do I use it as part of improving my sales pitch? Right? All these different things. It can't just be somebody over there doing this magical mythical thing behind the curtain, right? It's not the Wizard of Oz sitting behind a curtain pulling levers. It's everybody walking the yellow brick road, right? So that's the
How do you
idea.
empower everybody?
Mm,
Absolutely. The other challenges are what tools do we use? Which ones are
mm.
safe? Which ones are going to be around? Some of the tools that were around when we first started this journey, well, number one, we first started this journey back in the 1950s. I personally was not along for that, but in the 1950s for AI, right? But even if I just look at the past 5 years, right, and AI and what was available to us, then that is something that everybody is thinking about is which tools do I pick? Which ones are safe and secure? Which ones have issues? What do I put on my network? I mean, when we start to look at that, I think that that's another challenge. So now I'm going into kind of the architecture perspective, and when they're making recommendations, it's easy to shut down almost every tool. It's also easy to lose those tools because somebody comes in and they make one that's better. And so you're constantly replacing it. So your entire ecosystem kind of changes. When you used to be able to have this solid ecosystem and environment that you had for developing, and supporting your systems, now all of a sudden that's going to change quite often. So how do you keep your environment willing to do that? But as well as how do you keep your people educated enough to be able to keep up with that? I would tell you most AI tools are pretty intuitive. I was a COBOL developer, but that's been a long time ago. And you do not want me, writing code for anything. But most tools that I log into, they're usually pretty intuitive. People have realized, hey, you have to make this intuitive for just anybody to use it. So no coding background needed.
We did get this question, Karen. William Grady asked, "How big is the challenge to develop an AI portfolio?"
Oh, one of my
Yeah.
favorites. So
Yeah.
and I'll be honest with you, I've only had one company who has done this really well. You're welcome for the COBOL reference. Um, what was it? What was it? And done this really well. So I would tell you if you have executive sponsorship, I had a lady who was the leader over this portfolio, and she was like, let's jump in. And, we looked at different ways to be able to incorporate AI. So you have to think about it. You have to incorporate it two different ways. You have to incorporate it into the initiatives and the epics that you're actually developing, but to also in your process for portfolio. So how difficult is that? I would say which ones benefit you the most? I don't think it's difficult. It's just looking at it and saying, how do I look through a different lens, right? How do I make sure that AI is helping us in everything we do? So this person, and I cannot divulge the company, obviously, but this person actually said, "Hey, I want a portfolio dashboard. I want something that tells me that the things that we thought that we were going to get from these epics, that we're really getting them. Let me look at my OKRs. How are those coming along, right? They start to help us inform us." And so that was really good. But then, too, she goes, let's put a certain percentage out there that we need AI, that we want to make sure that 30% of our budget is investing in AI. And it was really interesting. At first, I was like, gosh, do I like that or do I not? But I did, because it let them have a conversation. If they got to 30% for that PI, let's say that they were just kind of going through and saying, hey, what are we going to move through? Then if they got to 30%, we would say, hey, that's really good, but are we doing the right things? But if they didn't get to 30%, what could they say? They could say, why are we not at 30%? Are there some opportunities to bake in AI? And so I'm a very big advocate of not creating a separate AI group. I'm a big advocate of integrating that into your portfolio. And why is that? Because everything we deliver needs to consider AI. And so when people talk about this AI team that looks over all the AI initiatives, I'm like, that's your portfolio team. And so now how do we, bake that into our products, but also how do we bake that into our processes? And it's pretty interesting what you can do. I do not think that it's too challenging. It does take a different mindset.
Does take a different mindset for sure.
Sorry, Doug. I know
No,
I
no,
talked most of the
that's
time there.
fine when approaching portfolio endeavors.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to talk more about that, as you can tell, that's a place that I'm super, super passionate about, because while I love safe and agile, I think that the teams always do a great job, but the portfolio, once they can start to make sure that we're investing in the right things, then we get even better.
And it looks like we got another question. Have you seen anyone?
Define the AI maturity
Yeah.
model. I think that there's a couple of them out there emerging. Is there one that I would settle on 100%? I don't think so. I don't know, Doug, if you've seen one that you,
No, it's definitely an emerging because things are moving so fast, right?
yeah.
Uh, it's definitely an emerging area. Um, I, I have not seen one that I would hitch my wagon to just yet. Um, there's just been, I mean, so much movement, and there's so many dynamics in that too. Again, it's, what constraints are. Like if you're constrained by what AI tools that you can use, I mean, those constraints are going to directly impact anything in your maturity, right? If you have a company that isn't allowing agentic workflows into the environment, tools like Flowwise or you know, N8N or anything else that if they're being very restrictive, right, that's going to negatively impact any of those tools. So it's like right now, I think there's way too many. It's such evolving. I would be hesitant to say I've seen a couple, yeah, but I haven't actively used. So that's probably an area that I need to add to my personal.
I think you should create one, Doug. That's a
Yep,
challenge for you.
yeah.
You always look at things through a different lens. So,
So
um, I do think that we look at a couple of different areas whenever we go into a company, right? We'll look at the leadership, right? Are they accepting of AI? Do they understand it? They do not have to be technical, but do they understand how to lead through AI, which is very different, right? I do think that tooling and architecture guidance. How many people I look at, do they have that team? If they have that team, then gosh, they're probably not as mature as if they are allowing everybody to use it and giving some guidance out there. So there's a lot of things that we could think about, Doug. So again,
yeah,
challenge made.
yeah.
But yeah, so I would just tell you, was one of the companies that I've worked with, they have an AI lab and anybody can go in there and that lab actually protects them. Because one of the things that I think is we have to think about AI and what it could do for us without all these constraints. but we all know we're under legal and regulatory compliance, in most companies. And so if I say here's the 5 books that you need to consider all of these different rules and regulations, now go in and be innovative. I've usually killed your innovation mode, right? But you need to be able to innovate and come up with great ideas. And then we're like, oh, that's a great idea, but we can't do this, this, or this because of these regulations. But what we can do is once we strip that out, we still have value. And so I love the way that they do the innovation lab. So just a small tip.
All right. That's vote time. That one we definitely got some attention there. Thank you for the additional questions. Uh, let's just go ahead and wrap that one up. Who are the who are the top 5 to 10 of the best YouTubers in the AI space from whom you draw knowledge, inspiration? I am not on YouTube. Um, So I don't know that I could answer that one other than to say, let me just, I'm more, I get daily feeds. That's been my thing is I get daily feeds into my email. So I get, oh, what are a couple? I get news feeds. I'm going to say news feeds. I
Yeah.
get TLDR AI is one. You can Google all these. TLDR is one. I'm opening up my email real quick and pulling it in.
I would also tell you really quick, Doug, while you're looking for yours, if you take a course with myself or Doug, then one of the things that we can give you is a way to write a prompt that will deliver something into your inbox that is customized for you. And when I say that, I like to give people a way to write a prompt for their specific role, for what they're interested in. And it goes out and it looks for everything and it will deliver it right into your inbox. So you can kind of tell it what you're looking for. I always like to leave my students with something like that. So, as well as these other areas where somebody else is gathering it, but we can actually customize that for you. It's one of the great things about AI. What was it? I have a few that I've watched a little bit of. Matthew Bierman, I think he's probably more from a leadership perspective. Um, and he kind of tries to speak in plain English. So this is a constant goal of mine as I'll find myself trying to just make sure that I can just walk in and talk to anybody and I don't scare the heck out of them, right? Whenever I'm talking. And so I think that he does good from a leadership perspective. Some of the other ones, Dave Shapiro, if you're looking for architecture. So I like to keep technology at the front of my mind because if you know anything about transformations, then a lot of times you have a technologist who's saying we can't do that and why we can't do that. And so I always have to need to know why we can do that. And so I think he's an interesting one. So that's two. If you all have any that you love, I would love for you all to share those in chat. Yeah, so that's yeah. That's probably two that just come to mind right away. I'm happy to look over my list of people that I'll look for every once in a while, but those are the two that come front of mind.
Yeah, and I actually look at too, like, I will go read like OpenAI's latest and greatest. So the people that are at OpenAI, I actually I'm always looking at their roadmap and release notes. OpenAI, I look at Gemini, I look at Claude. I look to see where they're going, like, so Anthropic, right? I follow Anthropic's newsletter, I follow Gemini's newsletter. So I actually look at who the major providers are and, what are they doing, what are the major providers, um, roadmaps and blogs and blog posts, right? So this would be Anthropic.
So yeah, so as you're doing that, then I
Yep.
would just really quick too, Y Combinator. So I don't know how many people are, are aware of Y Combinator, but I'm a very big advocate of them. I think they've done some amazing things. So they usually sponsor startups. They've had Sam Altman there speaking directly, many of the leaders, within AI. So if you can ever go out and look at something from Y Combinator on AI, I think that you get some very direct, straight talk because they are looking at it from a startup perspective. Many of us are in large companies and we don't know if that's valuable to us. I would tell you it is. I stay very involved with startups. So when I walk into large companies and they tell me something can't happen, I know that it can. It just might have to be modified. There's something in the middle, right there. It's not that we're going to be able to act like a startup, but if we just keep thinking like a big company, we'll never get there. So how do you challenge yourself? I would look at some of the Y Combinator videos that are out there.
I threw on there AI Native Connect, right? There's some great people out there that are in the AI Native Connect space that
Yeah.
bounce ideas off of regularly. So, um,
Yeah. And you get access to that as soon as you take a course, and they share and they want to
yep.
help.
All right. Looks like we're trending towards finish. We got a time for at least one more. That was a good question.
Yeah, this has been great.
How quickly might we see measurable business impact after completing the AI native training? Right away, in my opinion. Because again, you're leaving here, you bring a workflow, an actual workflow to this class, the one that you have, and you actually use AI to enhance that workflow, to look at potential opportunities for that workflow in AI. And then once you do that, you actually then can use AI to enhance that workflow. So you both use AI to figure out where and how you can enhance. You actually use AI to enhance it, and then you actually use AI to help you prepare a pitch, a proposal, basically an elevator pitch to help you run this by your management to say, hey, can we actually do this? Can I actually get this implemented? So that's really part of the day two is we give you all the tools to enhance a workflow and then how you can sell that to your leadership to say, look at what the savings are and provide you with some actual ROI and some benefit behind it. Here's some real savings that we could get in this workflow. So I would say right away.
Doug, I just want to pull that thread a little bit more, if you don't mind.
No, of
Um,
course.
what was it? That's the biggest piece of feedback that I do get from leaders once their company has been through these courses, right? Is I can now understand what they were trying to say. Before I was so excited. I was like, hey, AI, it's so cool. And if we do this, and if we do this, and if we do this, it would be so cool. Can you approve it? And they're looking at me like, no, And, but now what they give you is a tool to be able to articulate that. And they're articulated in the same way. And you can actually look at it and start to quantify what some of those benefits are. We've actually had people within the course look at it and say, oh, I thought we were going to save a lot more money. But now that I look at this, I don't know that we are, right? And so it helps them articulate it to leaders in a way that makes it easy to understand and it's really consistent. So you take something super complex and that's hard to kind of understand in the beginning or hard to communicate the benefits, and it gives you a way to break that down and then to go and say, okay, I think that this is an idea and this is why. And I really like that. And so I don't always mean to be so focused on processes and organization of data, but when you get into the AI world, sometimes it's hard to explain things. And to have a tool that helps you effectively communicate that is pretty important. So I think that you
Yeah.
get the benefit right off the bat. Number one, I think
Right.
you're going to make better decisions on what you're investing in. Therefore, if you make those better decisions, then you probably have a better outcome.
Yeah, it definitely is outcomes focused. Um,
Yeah.
it's not just teaching you a bunch of stuff. It's definitely outcome focused. It's how can I actually use this to improve my day-to-day life, improve my day-to-day work life, personal life, whatever it is, right? How can I actually use it to really, you know, free me up? I mean, we had one person that in their workflow, uh, she was almost in tears in one of the classes because she was struggling with this workflow, but her table of people helped her, and she goes, "You don't realize this just saved me, 1 to 200 hours a year that I now get back to do more strategic things." Right. And she was just like, I have been struggling with this, and now you guys have helped me in this class to actually do this thing that now frees me up to do things that improve my value, my contribution. I can offload this stuff to free me up to do more critical thinking. So, I mean, we've had people with visceral emotional reactions to what we've been able to accomplish in just
And
a
that's
two-day
a
class.
And that's a big difference. I did not have those emotions or reactions, right, within some other courses. And so I would say that the human side is the biggest difference. And how do you become AI native? How are you using it in the beginning of the day, to say, how am I going to use AI to make my day better? Versus waking up and saying, what do I have to do and where can I apply AI? So.
All right. I'm just going to go ahead and move this over here. I think we've hit this, but how can organizations that want to adopt AI but aren't sure where to start leverage the AI Native Foundations course? To me, just like a couple of companies have already, they put together a small group, right? Put together a small group of people that might be closer to AI than others, or more curious than others, and just like anything, create that groundswell, right? So these people, I had 12, 15 people in a class, and they took it back and they said, we need now more people to go through this. We need more people to see this stuff. So they became kind of that grassroots initiative. But it's to get those people that are passionate, right, that seem to be on that front end of it, and curious, people that are extremely curious, and I say build it from the grassroots up. Any thoughts on that, Karen?
Yeah, and so if I read the question, I went back and I reread how can organizations that want to adopt AI but aren't sure where to start leverage AI native foundations? I think it's because AI native foundations is for everyone, right? And so where are the best ideas going to happen? They're going to happen in the people who are working within the company, right? So especially if you're looking at your processes, and that is a very easy win, right? You can pick up those processes, you can automate them, and that's an easy win. So to me, that's how you leverage it, is to get some of those ideas. While I do think that you have to have the groundswell and the grassroots, you also have to have somebody at the top, because if not, what happens is they lock everything down, right? You have to have some people that are developing the guardrails and what's acceptable and everything, but they need to push themselves constantly. I always have to walk in there and say, why did you make that decision? Well, somebody published something, and I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about that more, right? So you do have to have both of them come together. But how do we use AI native foundations? It's for everybody. That's where your great ideas are going to come from, and where some of your biggest benefits in the beginning will come from. Sorry, I was trying to hurry
No,
within those
that's all
seconds.
right. I think we are actually at time.
Yeah,
So we've got a minute. We just didn't get to one. Who should take AI native foundations training? Everyone.
everyone.
So we've already answered that one. So I think we got through them all. Look at that. Woohoo. That's the first time we've been through all
Wonderful.
of them. So a lot of information is on this board. If you've kept the link, this board isn't going away. You can come back to this board. You can get the integration guide. The link is there, the Icon Connect newsletter, all this information. I want to thank you all for participating. Any final thoughts, Karen, before we say
That's absolutely right. We
adios?
appreciate you attending. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. This is a great group. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you all.